Yes, Saurav, you can start now, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. A warm and hearty welcome to all present here. On behalf of our postgraduate Department of English, Karim City College, Jamshedpur, I, Saurabh Mandal, feel truly honored to welcome you all to yet another enriching session of our E-cademy, a web interaction series. E-cademy is our humble academic initiative aimed at facilitating intellectual exchange, dialogue, and learning beyond the classroom. Today's session is especially close to our hearts as it explores a topic that intersects deeply with both literature and our environmental consciousness, eco-criticism, and Indian English literature. We are absolutely delighted to have with us today an inspiring academician, research, and passionate educator, Dr. Dr. Priyam Francis, who will be guiding us through this thought-provoking topic. Dr. Priyam Francis is currently serving as Assistant Professor in the Department of English at MDDM College under B.R. Ambedkar, Bihar University, Muzaffarpur. A distinguished alumna of Patna University, she has earned her bachelor's, master's, and PhD degree from the same institution. Dr. Francis is also an active member of the Association of English Studies of India and one of the regional coordinators for Bihar in the Ecosophical Foundation for the Study of Literature and Environment. Her academic interest lies in exploring the dynamic, ever evolving relationship between literature and society, and she brings the passion alive in both her research and teaching. Now, to formally welcome our esteemed guest, I would like to invite our respected principal, Dr. Mohammad Riaz, to kindly extend a warm welcome and share a few words.
Thank you, Saurav. Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Dr. Priyam Francis, Assistant Professor, Department of English, MDDM College, B.R. Ambedkar, Bihar University, faculty members, and my dear students. It is indeed a privilege to have such a distinguished academician, Dr. Priyam Francis, today. On behalf of the management of Karim City College, I feel honored to welcome such a personality from the field of academics who have graciously agreed to share her insight on eco-criticism and Indian English literature. E-Academy is an e-initiative of the PG Department of English, Karim City College, which intends to open the door of knowledge for our students by introducing them to fertile mind across the globe. In the earlier events of the series, the department has welcomed several academicians of the national and international repute.
Hello, sir.
Today's interaction with Dr. P.M. Francis is the another one in the series, and we have all eagerly looking forward to a wonderful lecture. I congratulate the head PG Department of English, Dr. S.M. Yahya Ibrahim, for his efforts to bringing such an eminent personalities to us and wish the department a wonderful event today. I extend my best wishes to the department, its students, its faculty members for dynamic learning session ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much to all.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah,
please.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this lecture. Thank you, Principal Sir, for the kind introduction. I am not as knowledgeable as you have, generously mentioned me as, but I will try my best to do the topic that I'll be speaking on to do it justice. I have a brief presentation, and I would like to present my screen. Okay. I don't know if my screen is visible or not.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible,
Okay. Okay.
but it has started in between some page
Yes.
10 or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So this is the topic.
Yes, ma'am, everything is fine.
Okay. So I will be speaking on the need for and presence of eco-critical concerns in Indian English literature all over the planet, as we all know. We all have seen, and in the recent past, there have been such incidents like forest fires, incessant flooding, unexpected droughts in areas which used to receive a decent amount of rainfall. So we have seen such, and we have seen cataclysmic natural catastrophes which have rendered our day-to-day lives difficult. And despite that, we continue to, interfere in the ways of nature. And like I mentioned here, all over the planet, ecological systems are under severe stress. And all of these things are ultimately caused by anthropogenic factors. And so much so that a term called the Anthropocene, which would indicate a supposed geologic age that bears testimony to the pervasive human influence on climate and ecological systems of the earth. All human activity in general has some sort of some or the other sort of influence it leaves on the earth, on the environment. But for a major part, our blind pursuit of development of civilizational goals of creating artificial environments, human-made environments have gone a long way towards destroying the natural habitats, ecosystems that we have. The blind pursuit of development, mainly led by the haves, the capitalists. It can also be the term that we use, Anthropocene. It can actually be called Capitalocene, because much of the harm that is done is at the behest of those who benefit from, who have access to a large part of earthly resources, and who are misusing, and abusing them for their private benefit. So much so that there is hardly any scope for sustainable and equitable growth. As we can see, as we have all known somewhere or the other, that mainly the developed countries, meaning the global north, their carbon footprint is more significant than the other parts of the earth, the other nations of the earth. And there it is, to a certain extent, their blind and heedless race to remain the most developed, or to become the most developed, that they are very indiscriminately using up Earth's resources, and their carbon footprint is something that exceeds the that of the other nations, and the brunt of it, the effects of it, have to be borne out by everyone. I hope I'm legible to everyone, because I'm not exactly reading from the slides as such. Some of the points are written there, though.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you, sir. So even developing countries in the process. So it is that the problem is that developed countries are exploiting resources more than is their due. But even developing countries like ours, in our race to catch up to such developed nations, we have also given up, throwing concerns for sustainability to the wind. We are also not looking at equitable growth, at the growth of the marginalized, and the growth of and the proper sustenance of the ecosystem people. So in the internal structure, this is something Amitav Ghosh points out in his work, The Great Derangement. He says the internal structure of the developing world, the urban middle classes too, and the upper classes, possibly, have a carbon footprint that is not much lower than that of the average European. So, and this is something that is happening despite there being multiple avowed greening initiatives. So we have heard of many greening initiatives. We also listen to various accounts of how there are people who invest their time, their effort in planting forests. The government initiatives are Green India Mission, National Afforestation Program, Joint Forest Management, pursuance of policies like National Agroforestry Policy, Red Plus Policy. So despite this, India has lost approximately 668,400 hectares of forest between 2015 and 2020, making it the second highest deforestation rate globally during that period. This loss increases the risk of desertification, as is obvious, erratic monsoons, and declining crop yields. And we have extreme climatic events every year, disastrous floods, landslides, cyclonic disturbances, which disrupt the lives of, which disrupt everybody's lives. And yes, rainfall patterns have become disastrously unpredictable, both resulting into drought-like conditions where rainfall is not sufficient, and flooding in those regions, especially in those agricultural lands which would ensure proper food grain availability for the whole population, but because they get flooded during the farming seasons, it becomes food grain availability will gradually also become a very crucial concern. So this is the scenario at present, despite avowed initiatives, despite our carbon footprint not matching that of the developed nations. Ecocriticism is something that still remains relevant. A rough idea of what ecocriticism is, it is often used as a catch-all term for any aspect of humanities, media, film, philosophy, history, which addresses ecological issues, climatic issues, environmental issues, but it primarily functions as a literary and cultural theory. This is not to say that it is confined only to literature and culture. It has a multidisciplinary aspect to it, wherein it incorporates science, ethics, politics, philosophy, economics, and aesthetics across institutional and national boundaries. Moving on to its relevance. So it involves the use of multidisciplinary approaches to address different aspects of ecological issues, and various aligned concerns or modes of research are materialism, environmental justice, bioregionalism, eco-cosmopolitanism, environmental humanities, blue humanities. So materialism basically talks about how all material on earth is connected, that there is a very intricate and inexorable connection that we cannot be sequestered from the other aspects of the earth. Like human beings consider themselves, to many people, not all, but most of humanity, because the way we are moving blindly without assessing our impact on the environment, we feel as if we are living in a human made bubble, but it is not so. We are connected to the whole of the earth in totality, and however we behave with nature, all of it will have a certain fallout which will come back to us. Environmental justice talks about how resources are used up by those who are in power, whether they be in developed countries or in developing countries, but those who are in power, they use up a lot of resources and they leave the marginal sections of society to bear the brunt of it. Most of the time, when groundwater is polluted or when flooding happens, it is the ecosystem people, the common folk, who are left in the lurch. Bioregionalism, which talks about specific environmental concerns which are specific to certain areas, regions. Eco-cosmopolitanism, it talks about how there can be, we can make an effort to conserve nature, to preserve our forests, to to not interfere with or to reduce human impact on the environment by forming associations across national boundaries all over the globe, because our influence is very pervasive. It extends to the whole globe. So we should also form connections across the whole globe. So on and so forth. These areas are aligned with eco-critical concern. And so there are multiple newer ways which come up. Like, people think that eco-criticism is something that is outdated, that deals only with literature. But I would say that that even these ways of looking at eco-critical concerns are still linked to eco-criticism one way or the other. So eco-criticism remains relevant, as the issues that it deals with, concerns itself with, still remain largely unaddressed, and the various offshoots of eco-critical concerns are primarily newer ways of exploring the same problem that eco-criticism deals with. This is one of the ways of wait a bit, where was I? This is one of the ways of analyzing whether a work is aligned with the eco-critical concern or not. Lawrence Boole provides a rough checklist. He's an eco-critic, and he provides a rough checklist on how to know whether a work is environmentally oriented or not. So it goes on to So the points are: the non-human environment is present not only as a framing device, but as a presence that begins to suggest that human history is implicated in natural history. So he goes on to say that whenever we engage in a narrative, whenever we are interacting with a work, whether it be a poem or a fictional work, if it is to be environmentally oriented, it should have human. It should not use the non-human environment as merely a framing device, but there should be some sort of connection where the human interests and the non-human interests are both interlinked. They're not seen as separate from each other. The human interest is not understood also. The second point is the human interest is not understood to be the only legitimate interest. And the third is human accountability to the environment is part of the text's ethical orientation. So this is something that helps analyze whether any text, any work is environmentally oriented or not, whether it is anthropocentric or whether it is biocentric or zoocentric. Okay, I have missed certain points, I think. Okay. Yeah. So I'll move on to tracing eco-consciousness in Indian thought. Traditionally, Indian writing and thought have been considered to be imbued with eco-consciousness. Earlier, the text that we have culturally inherited from the past and practices as such, they seem to be somehow more connected with nature than our modern ways of living. Some of the earliest views of nature in Indian thought are found recorded in textual traditions called the Vedas, beginning with the worship of nature gods and reverence hymns to the earth. A large part of the belief system of these earliest thinkers was imbued with natural value. And natural elements, as can be gathered from the extract that I just included, that cultural rituals defied natural elements, and they therefore posited them as important, as valuable. There are certain texts. Meera Baidur has a work on which covers how cultural rituals and texts have, and historical texts have sustained or had a certain degree of eco-consciousness. So her work goes on to point out how documents from a variety of disciplines were interlinked with the natural systems, ranging from texts on medicine to theological and literary works, as we'll find in this extract. The topographical classification of landscape is found within a traditional system of medicine, Ayurveda. The Jain texts as well, they describe an almost mythical geography of hills and continents and rivers. And we have Kalidas's poem Meghadutam, which is a fictional rendering of a cloud's route to the Himalayas. So it was a very inherent part of almost all texts. And Gadgil and Guha, in their work, this Fissured Land, they point out how Buddhism and Jainism began to play a role in once again designing social conventions which promoted prudent use of resources. So it was not like conserving nature and prudent use of resources was never a concern. It had always been a concern. And there were systematic efforts, like in an article titled Sacred Groves of Northeast India and Their Floristic Richness and Significance in Biodiversity Conservation. Tripathi talks about how conservation of the richness of forested areas in the Northeast was a common practice, and what happened was areas were designated as sacred and off limits for common or commercial use, and therefore they were protected from heedless or rampant cutting. Declaring a patch of forest near villages as sacred and protecting it on the grounds of religious and cultural beliefs is an age-old practice in the tribal communities of Northeastern India. And apart from that, there are other communities which have the concept of sacred grove, sacred animal, therefore thereby protecting certain species, certain species of flora and fauna. And we have had a past of, or rather history of environmentalism. We, to be specific, have a different kind of environmentalism from the kind of environmentalism that can be found in the north part of the globe. And Guha, in his work, he got in their work Fissured Land, this Fissured Land, Ramchandra Guha identifies 3 types of environmentalism to be found in India: crusading Gandhians, ecological Marxists, appropriate technologists. So the crusading Gandhians, they proposed returning to simpler ways of life and not opting for more modern Western ways of life, so in order to reduce the disastrous or the ruinous impact of human existence on nature environment. And ecological Marxists, who talked about more appropriate and equitable distribution of resources, so as to so I would say that ecological Marxists are more aligned with the environmental justice movement, wherein stress on resources should, the fact that stress on resources should be relieved would be the onus of those who are using the resources more, i.e. the haves, the one with the power, the one with the access to resources, rather than the common folk. And the appropriate technologies. And then there were movements like Chipko movement, which were community-based conservation movements, which were not religious as such, but sometimes they were born out of human need, like ecosystem people who depended upon a certain ecosystem when their ecosystems were under stress, because obviously people who live in forests, who have farmlands, was suddenly under threat because a dam is going to be built or roads are going to go through a certain forested area. So movements like Chipko movement come up when people who are ecosystem people who depend on a certain ecosystem, they feel that their livelihood their day-to-day existence is threatened. And so we have had a history of environmentalism in India, and it's not like we have been not alive to the kind of impact we have on nature, and we have never really been alive to conservation. We have been, but even then, gradually, as India has tried to go ahead in terms of development, we have also become very apathetic towards the environment. Like Guha points out, that when economic growth began to accelerate in the 1990s, an anti-environmental backlash also picked up. Influential columnists began to demonize people like Medha Patkar, leader of the Narmada movement. They accused her of being an old-fashioned leftist who wished to keep India backward. In India, we are now in the middle of what might be called an age of ecological arrogance. So I would like to point out that I had earlier pointed out how cultural tenets can help in conservation, but also there is a certain degree of limitation to them. Till we realize that nature, that rivers, that the environment are material, physical, embodied entities, we will probably somehow, even if we narrativize their existence in theological stories, sometimes that narration gets limited to an abstract sphere, ideal sphere, and we do not acknowledge the harm that we might be doing to them. So Mirabai points out, in short, religions have neither been simple agents of environmental domination nor unmixed repositories of ecological wisdom. In complex and variable ways, they have been both. So even in Indian traditions of thought, the connection between women and nature have led to similar devaluation and exploitation of women and nature. The point being that, as I pointed out here, the sacralization is to render something sacred, but that does not ensure that their welfare will always be protected. That women and nature have been deified, have been sacralized in Indian culture, but that has not really ensured that they are protected amply, that they have been, that their welfare has been treated as seriously as it needs to be. So the sacralization of the mother and the conceptualization of nature as maternal feminine do not contribute to any significant ecological benefit. The ideal of motherhood is itself based on characteristics of negation and sacrifice. So this is one of the ways that element of nature is deified, sacralized, apparently given more importance through religious practices. But the cons of or the side effect of this sacralization, deification, is that we end up negating their physical presence, so much so that we completely deny that they could, that nature could be depleted, or that women could end up exhausted by the burden that is, or similarly, like we burden nature, we do not realize how we have a point not really very receptive towards and very proactive in our protection of nature, in terms of achieving sustainable and equitable growth. So I'll move on to how Indian English literature deals with nature. So to begin with, initially it began as nature writing, and not just nature writing, but nature as a part of the landscape or the imagery that was employed in writings. So early Indian Anglian literature contains nature imagery which frequently has a spiritual or sentimental aspect to it, betraying the influence of the English Romantics. From the spiritual poetry of Sri Aurobindo to the poems of Toru Dutt, nature is an integral part of their works. While in Dutt's poems, the natural surroundings are usually imbued with her own emotional states. It is equally frequent that her poems bring out the natural beauty in a memorable manner. We can see here how she has she has painted a very beautiful picture. But nothing can be lovelier than the range of bamboos to the eastward, where the moon look through the gaps and white lotus changes into cup of silver. One might swoon drunken with beauty then, or gaze and gaze on primeval Eden in amaze. So, though I would like to point out the fact that here it has been nature has been idealized. It has been portrayed as something as heavenly, but heaven is an abstract concept, and heaven will never depreciate in value. But nature, if we exploit it too much, it will depreciate, it will degrade, it will lose its capacity to heal itself after a point. We find in Sarojini Naidu too, in her poems, she captures life and culture of of India, and paints beautiful natural portraits. Her poems carry a bucolic quality as she brings out the beauty of the natural landscape of India. While the initial exploration of India, so I have pointed out some of the names of initial Indo-Anglian poets, and for the major part, I would say what I feel is that their use of nature imagery did not really foreground nature in its vitality, and also not uh, in its vulnerability. Because like I had referred to Lawrence Bowen's checklist earlier, how we can understand whether a work is being mindful of critical concerns or not. So the points that were included there, they are not exactly being satisfied in by the Indo-Anglian poetry that we find initially, because nature is used more as something that can be that is being seen from an anthropocentric perspective, rather than and enriching the imagery of the poems, rather than an entity in itself which is vital, but it is also vulnerable to human influence. So while the initial exploration of nature was largely limited to the imagery employed in Indian English literature, it gradually there are environmental concerns which start becoming foregrounded. Yeah. So ecological concern gradually becomes more palpable, more visible in Indian English literature. Environmental crises have become worryingly recurrent, incrementally worse over years, and nature gradually becomes no longer a passive backdrop. There are cracks in the apparent, you know. Perfection of nature, or in its ability to completely heal itself always. So nature was no longer only the aesthetic background to the play of human emotions and experiences, but it was foregrounded instead. The manner in which the environment was presented also in literary pursuits underwent change. So one of the literary stalwarts of the time, Rabindranath Tagore's songs, poetry, prose, his various works, they are marked by presence and concern for nature. So in his works, Rakta Karabi, Muktadhara, eco-critical concerns are foregrounded. And as a critic points out, in Tagore's works, man and natural world coexist harmoniously. Man is portrayed as a humble ingredient of nature, not as a king. Tagore's poem, Sabhyatar Prati, to civilization, uh, begins with the opening lines, which could be translated as "Give back that wilderness, take away the city," which is obviously an indignant protest against the urbanization, which is fast consuming all the sylvan, secluded, shaded, and sacred spots, which is overtaking nature. We have fast created a human-made artificial world, which is undermining the natural ecosystems, which are very important for biodiversity and also for our own existence. Then there is an extract from a poem by K.K. and Daruwala, where he talks about a tree getting burnt and its inhabitants. Here, those inhabitants are bees. Uh, they are suddenly, left without a home, and they begin stinging the children. So we would say that the bees are kind of are aggressive, but because their home was destroyed first by human hands. So we do not see the fallout of nature coming towards us, but it is in the making, and it is due to our own activities that we are at the receiving end of various so I've taken extracts from various Indian English poets to highlight what they think of nature. In this poem by A.K. Ramanujan, it's called Ecology. So is it ecology? Okay, I think I've missed this thing. This poem actually is called The Three Champak Trees, and possibly it's ecology. Anyway, so it exhibits, this extract exhibits ecofeminism. We find that actually what happens is that there are three champak trees which when they flower during the flowering season, they the pollen from these trees, they trigger the migraine of the persona who supposedly tells us about this in this poem. So his mother, despite the fact that her migraine is triggered by the pollen from the flowers of this tree, she still does not allow. She becomes angry when her son tries to cut this tree. So she said, that extract reads, "But mother, flashing her temper, would not let us cut down a flowering tree almost as old as she, seeded," she said, "by a passing bird's providential droppings." So it is almost as if she sees, she looks at the tree as a companion, and not only that, as a gift given by left by birds. So we find that she supports, she speaks in favor of a tree despite the kind of health issue that she has to face due to the tree. So it is a distinctly ecocentric perspective that just because she is inconvenienced by it, she does not discard it, does not stop valuing the tree. We have Dilip Chitre's The Felling of the Banyan Tree, where again we find that his grandmother is someone who saw trees as sacred, but his father cuts them down. And it is said, he points out how the roots of these trees were deeper than that of our lives. And that is true of nature actually. The processes that take place in nature are so deep, they take place in deep time. But it does not take us long to denude forests which have taken hundreds of years to develop. Okay. In the poem Heart of Ruin, Arun Kolatkar, he talks about, so we have seen that how the flora, the trees have been foregrounded in various poems. Here we find that Kolatkar, by placing an animal, a dog, in a former place of worship, seems to be endorsing an ecological or a zoocentric version of religion, where respect for life is not merely an anthropocentric exercise. The excerpt from that poem, The Heart of Ruin, reads, "A mongrel bitch has found a place for herself and her puppies in the heart of the ruin. Maybe she likes her temper better this way." We feel that probably Kolatkar too likes a temple better this way, where concern has been foregrounded, where connection he frequently and we find that in Kolatkar, in other works too, the non-human the presence of the non-human being is used to undercut anthropocentric formulations and institutions. So he he questions those formulations, those institutions, such practices which are kind of uh, which are empty, which are not, which seem to be empty when compared to uh, a vital, ecological, ecocentric viewpoint. We find in Jayant Mahapatra's uh, The Dawn at Puri, it's his poem, and in that there is an extract from that poem, which reads, white-clad widowed women pass the centers of their lives, are waiting to enter the great temple. Their austere eyes stare like those caught in a net, hanging by the dawn's shining strands of fate. Sorry. So we see here that in a kind of a ecofeminist comparison, Patra points out how nature as well as women have been caught in a trap, in a system which has been set up to work against them. Like in an anthropocentric perspective of things, we automatically assume ourselves as owners of the resources. We see nature and environment as resources rather than as sharers of the earth. And we therefore rig the system in our favor, just like the system is rigged in favor of a patriarchal view, where women are bound to fail in one way or the other. So similarly, we find that he has compared their inevitable failure in a system, whether it is social or ecological, but it has been rigged against them. So they will suffer share the same fate. In another poem, One Evening, Mahapatra points out how he identifies with nature. So it is almost a fluid human subjectivity. It is not a very rigid, segregated sort of an identity that he's talking about here. He talks about a fluid identity, human identity, which can encompass, which can connect itself with nature. So it reads, that extract from the poem One Evening reads, "One evening I was a mango tree with a clutch of troubled, reluctant leaves, and the stormy wind suffered my tremors and tears." This poem by Mahapatra exhibits a fluid human subjectivity which does not identify itself in opposition to the non-human being, but in association with it. In his non-fictional work, The Great Derangement, Amitav Ghosh, and he narrativizes the ecologically irresponsible human behavior in the Great Derangement. So it is also a work which captures how we are responding to nature, how we have been responding to nature, and the misgivings that Ghosh has, and the kind of faults that we have committed, the mistakes that we have committed in our dealings with nature. So apart from that, why I have mentioned it here is that he asserts that there is an inadequacy of literary fictional response, especially in terms of prose. And he believes that the poetic form has lent itself more readily. So I have been reading from poems till now, and Ghosh is of the same. Ghosh believes that poetry has had an intimate relationship with climatic events, whereas prose has been ignoring them. But there are quite a few works which deal with, quite a few prose works in Indian English literature which deal with the kind of relationship we have with nature, the way we should go ahead, go forward, and highlighting ecological concerns. So Ruskin Bond, even though we do not traditionally, he has not been read as an ecological, eco-critical writer, but even his works, because they have a lot of natural imagery, and there is also a concern for both flora and fauna in his works. So in No Room for a Leopard, he shows how deforestation has a ruinous impact on creatures that inhabit an ecosystem. the tree lover, the cherry tree, all creatures great and small. And in all of these, he highlights the intricate bonds that tie human and nature together. Kiran Desai, in her work Hullabaloo in the Guava Orchard, like Tagore, she tires of the riotous town life and takes refuge in the guava orchard. Wait a minute. So, in Kamala Markandeya's Nectar in a Sieve, we see that she does not portray nature as a simple passive background, but it is an agential force and very vital. It is a destroyer and preserver of life. And she also highlights the inalienable connection with nature. How also the industrialization ruins the life of simple people, workers, manual laborers. In Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things, we find that she includes, whereas the story is also, it's working on various levels, but there is also the depiction of exploitation of nature for the sake of perceived progress and modernization. And this is a theme that is that can be continually found in his non-fictional works as well. She depicts the concurrent marginalization and exploitation of nature, the subaltern and women, all of whom are supposed to be pliant victims in a deeply hierarchical society, which believes in segregation and oppression rather than establishing vital connections. Okay, so this is the kind of criticism that has been developed in India, like Nirmal Dasan and Nirmal Selvamani have a very crucial role in this, because they have talked about oikopoetics, which is they have set it up as a sort of Indian eco-critical perspectives, so as to oikos means home. Oikopoetics would be treating eco-critical questions, issues, concerns as concerns for the home, and imagining our environment as our home. Okay, I think I have missed this should have come earlier. Anyway, Amitabh Ghosh's Hungry Tide, he is also a significant fictional and non-fictional contributor to the scene of eco-critical writing in India. His Hungry Tide highlights the imperiled existence of both nature and human, and it raises ecological concerns, meanwhile highlighting questions of ecological environmental justice. And similar concerns can be found in The Gun Island. Okay, I think this should have been placed here. And similarly, Vandana Shiva, she also has something to add to the kind of criticism that we do. Other than that, where was I? Yes, so we have seen literary works which were poetic, literary works which were fictional. Then there are other works which are recent works, and these are also fictional works, but kind of traversing the on the margins of being fictional and personal. So there are other works which talk about specific regional environmental issues. Like there is this work, Softly Dies a Lake, and it is specifically for works in regional languages. They reveal issues which are environmental issues which are plaguing certain specific areas. So Softly Dies a Lake, which is actually a translated story. It has been called a biopolitical memoir and an eco memoir, and it is a story of the deeply entangled lives of 5-year-old Sinu and the tempestuous Kodaru, which is a lake. And it reflects how human activities endanger natural resources. So we see in this story, a man ages. He has been, entangled with, he has seen a lake. He has grown in an area where there was a lake, and as he grows, that the ecosystem that it supports, the kind of lake that it used to be, it is no longer that kind of lake as he has aged. So even within the short span of time, as an individual's lifespan, this lake seems to lose its vitality. The aging Srinivas Rao, Sinu, gazes on the Koleru, now a broken mirror. He too, at the moment of recall, is a likeness of Koleru. So it is a travesty that we can turn to not the value of ecological systems, because even a lake is an ecological system. It has aquatic life which it is supporting. It is a storehouse of oxygen. So it is, but we, in our greed in terms of our anthropocentric view of life, we usually do not pay heed to sustainable growth. So much so as to not hurt the other uh, life, the other living beings, all the other life that exists on the earth apart from us. So, and there's another work, Gift in Green, translated by Sarah Joseph, and which was originally written in Malayalam, and where she talks about an eco-spiritual search for light and life in a world itching towards dystopia. So in all, we are human activity, anthropogenic causes have come to a point that wherever human beings, and also not just wherever we are, our influence is very pervasive on the whole planet. So much so that we are turning it into some place which is unlivable. We are exploring options to live on other planets. We are investing in space research, but we will not at any cost correct our ways. So it is very lamentable. Writers and poets from Northeast also effectively document local environmental concerns in their work, like in Lament for Earth, Tensula O. Voices are disquiet for the destruction of nature at human hands, and a section of the poem reads, "Alas for the forest which now lies silent, stunned and stumped with the evidence of a rape." So she has made a ecofeminist comparison between the exploitation of women and nature. Another poem by Mamang Dai, who is also a northeastern writer, poet. The Voice of the Mountain, that poem by Dai, she writes about, she picks up the mountain as a metaphor for mysterious power, as if, and also she uses, or rather she assumes that the mountain has an identity. An identity is something that we have traditionally considered only the prerogative of human beings, that agency, subjectivity, identity, cognition is something that make humans human, and therefore more superior to any other species, to any other entity. But in positing a level of perception and considering it a source of mysterious power, Mamang Dai has kind of tried to be ecocentric in this poem. How she talks about from how she imagines the mountain must feel. So she has shown it like this: "From where I sit on the high platform, I can see the fairy lights crisscrossing the big river." So human activities seem puny, small from the height of the mountain, almost as if just actually like nature, we will never be able to outrun the effects that we have unleashed on nature, and it will come back to us. So somewhere or the other, we are not as significant as we imagine ourselves to be, but we have in the process interfered a lot with natural processes. In non-fiction, we have Ramchandra Guha and Madhav Gadgil, who have contributed a number of works which explore the unique aspects of Indian environmental issues, as well as different kinds of environmentalisms that have developed to address them. Between them, they have produced a significant number of environmental non-fiction, Speaking with Nature, the origin of Indian environmentalism, This Fissured Land, Ecology and Equity. So these are some of the titles that they have produced together and otherwise, which address ecological issues in India. Apart from literary works, we have gradually other media that have come to address, to represent, to portray ecological issues. So in order to push environmental awareness beyond narrow confines of academia, it is important that eco-critical narratives are foregrounded by other media with a mass reach, and the cinematic medium is such a medium which has a significant reach. So while there have been other works in the past too, where misgivings, there have been misgivings. It's not like we have not had any misgivings, any disquiet, any concern in the past. But we have been ignoring them, and we have not really come out honestly and dealt with them. We have not really had them out in the open. So while misgivings regarding the future of our planet, beleaguered by anthropogenic environmental crisis, have found expression in the depiction of apocalyptic scenarios in cinematic medium, like in the movie 2012, more realistic presentations of contemporary environmental scenarios can be found in cinematic genre of eco-cinema, an example of which is Under the Sky. It is a movie by Vidya Sarveswaran, and it highlights the case of Rajasthan village called Piplantri, which has planted 250,000 trees over the last 6 years as they celebrate the birth of every newborn girl by planting 111 trees. The landscape, which was afflicted by polluting and degrading after effects of marble mining, was revitalized by the collective efforts of the villagers under the leadership of Shyam Sundar Paliwal, who was a former sarpanch. And it has successfully turned a semi-arid landscape into a green one, meanwhile attempting to undo gender inequalities. So, so what I pointed out throughout my presentation is that we have a long way to go, but we can come together, and if we address these issues through whichever medium, whether it be literature, whether it be cinema, poetry, fiction, non-fiction, we can possibly, as in the first step of solving a problem is to address it, to accept it, to let it out in the open, which is something that we might not have been doing as much as we should be, or maybe it is not reaching as many people. But we have a long way to go. Even as a developing economy, as a developing country, we still are not as ecologically aware as we should be, despite there being traditional practices, cultural practices, which are which should make us ecologically aware and conscious. But we still have a long way to go.
Saurabh?
Yes, sir.
Saurabh, can we take up the questions, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Priyam Francis, ma'am, for the truly insightful and engaging presentation. Your talks has opened up new ways of looking at literature through an ecological lens, and we are grateful for the depth and clarity you brought to the session. We all will now move to the interactive segment. If anyone has any question, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Priyam, there is a question in the chat box by Shah. It is in the message box. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Please.
how ecofascism can be viewed during the pandemic as a universal phenomenon, connecting the world to nature's comeback in some way. Yeah, I think everyone would, remember how during the pandemic the roads were empty. There was a distinct, purity in air. The AQI index everywhere was going down. But yeah, that was a period where there were multiple videos coming of various animals who would be, turning around on turning up on streets, which are only used by human beings. So there were such videos. There was such influx of material which indicated that the period of corona, it was kind of a godsend for natural revival. But I would say that we should it was also a period of a lot of loss of human lives. And I mean, that is something that is the case, that is true for all times, because until and unless we lose a lot of lives, human lives, to flooding, to droughts, there are multiple farmer suicides every year. There are multiple hectares of forest lost every year to forest fires. So what I'm trying to say is loss of human life is something that has become an yearly occurrence at the hands of cataclysmic natural catastrophes, incidents. And that is something that is what we saw during corona. So it is only during during times of distress, whether it is ecological, and also because corona was caused by zoonotic causes, it had an ecological aspect to it. It also had an anthropogenic aspect to it. So all of our problems are anthropogenic. And yes, you rightly pointed out that during the times of corona, because human activity decreased, so natural activity increased, and there was more purity of the air, and animals and flora, fauna, they seem to be better off. But why do we have to wait for times of distress, for times of flooding, for times of landslide, to acknowledge that our influence on nature is ruinous? That we should address. I think we should all learn to address the problem before it comes to a point where it cannot be addressed, where it will address it, or where it will happen so that nature will address it for us, and then it will become very ruinous. Because we don't learn, we create, we denude forests, we remove forests, we keep erecting structures on very on top of mountains and hills, and when there are landslides, then we say that okay, this thing has happened, and it has caused us so much of damage. So we do not realize before the damage is caused that we should be aware of our environment. Why should we not become aware beforehand? Why do we have to wait for something like corona, or something like floods, like landslides, like global warming to happen, and then we realize that okay, then we have to maybe cut back? Also, I would say that it is not just general public, it is also the government, it is also the people who are at the helm of power, who are actually clearing those forests. Because as general public, we do not actually clear the forests. It is the people who are in power, who are in charge of it, who should be looking at, who should be ensuring that various guidelines are followed, that eco-sensitive zones are not disturbed, that maybe wildlife corridors, elephant corridors are not disturbed, so that animals can pass on from one area to another. So we should also be mindful of the ways of nature, rather than expecting nature to accommodate us. Because if we expect nature to keep accommodating us, then something like corona and the cataclysmic natural events that happen each year, they will keep happening. And possibly we have seen that there has been another bout of corona, so there could be more such diseases in the future. And while it is good for nature, it is also very tragic. It's not like it's a very good incident as such. So why do we have to wait for such tragedies to happen before we realize that our actions are very ruinous, not only for nature but also for ourselves? I don't know whether I answered your question or not, but I have attempted.
Thank you so much. Two people have raised their hands, Lovely Kumari and Kanak. If you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, dear. Please put your
Ma'am,
question.
I want to ask that sometimes we feel difficult to connect nature with literature. So, what are the method or skill we can use to enhance our critical thinking while examining the relationship between nature and literary text?
Okay, so you want to know how to compare
How to connect with nature with literature, between the nature and literature?
okay. So see, there are various, like what we are doing right now is basically theoretical, right? So if we are talking about how to deal theoretically with an ecological perspective, I
Yes,
think
ma'am. So that, sorry,
yes,
ma'am. Ma'am,
sure.
so that we understand the role of nature in shaping the literary text or narrative.
Yeah. So I think I pointed out a checklist for you. I don't know if you remember, there was a checklist that was, or rather a set of points that was given by Lawrence Buell. Lawrence Buell is a literary critic. He has talked at length about eco-criticism, and I don't know, there are other ways too, like ecofeminism, like materialism. I think I pointed. I've not really dealt with them at length, but I have mentioned them. So there are various ways of approaching a literary text when you want to study it eco-critically. Okay, a very basic, rudimentary application which I could, or method which I could tell you, is that you could see whether there are interconnections between nature and human beings in a text. Like, say for instance, if a text talks about how affecting nature will affect human beings, you will naturally see, it will be obvious that nature and human and culture are connected, right? In most of the other, like if we watch rom-coms, or if we watch other such movies, psychological thrillers, whatever, in those narratives nature does not feature. Okay, nature is not an element as such. Even if someone cuts a tree, it does not have any uh, fallout, any negative impact. So when there is presence of nature, and there is what can I say, nature figures in the narrative, the plot, the meaning of the work, whether it is a poem or a fiction. When nature becomes a significant part of it, then we can say that yes, you know we can read this work eco-critically. Okay, otherwise, like if we are talking about cinema, we have a lot of nature. There are various songs which are sung and picturized in a very environmentally beautiful locale, but that does not mean that nature is a significant part of it. Nature should matter, right? Like, say for instance, there is a movie I had talked about, Under Another Sky. Okay, Under Another Sky is a movie. You can access it on YouTube. It is by Vidya Sarveswaran, and it talks about how people in a Rajasthan village, they plant trees whenever a girl child is born. So you see that in this narrative, in this story, nature is a very integral part, a very valuable part of the story. So that is one of the, you can say, determining factors of whether a work is environmentally oriented or not, whether it is environmentally conscious, valuable or not. Because you cannot pick Also, even in a work which does not value nature, you can still study it from from the perspective of nature, study it from an ecocentric perspective. You can point out how nature does not figure in the story, is not important in the story. So a work can be eco-critically valuable either way. If you want to study a work from the perspective of nature, you can judge, you can begin by analyzing whether it has been given any value or not. If it has not been given any value, then you can say that it has not been given any value, and that the story is anthropocentric. Anthropocentric meaning that only human beings have been treated as important, right? Or if it has been given value, you can say that the story has an ecocentric perspective, that it takes into account ecology, the nature around us. And then you can go on from that point and analyze whether there is elements of ecofeminism in it, whether it compares, whether the story compares the situation of women and nature, whether it traces interconnections between people and nature in a physical way, in a material way, whether there are elements of materialism or deep ecology. So there are various ways of approaching a work eco-critically. Okay, but the first point is to know whether nature is important in that work or not. I don't know whether I have answered your question. Lovely. Do you think that cleared your query?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I understand everything what you have said.
Okay, you're welcome, dear.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon.
This side Kanak. Thank you, ma'am, for the session. My question is, how can ego criticism be applied to analyze Indian English literary works?
I would go back to what I told Lovely, that you can begin by analyzing whether how is the work approaching nature, right? Nature as in not just trees. Okay, by nature we mean flora, fauna, various animals, various species, the land, water, the sky, the air, everything comes within nature. We also are natural beings. So does the work identify that? So you begin from that point, right? And then you can go, there is a vast arena that is available to you. Like I had pointed out, there are various perspectives that you can use, whether it is materialism, whether it is ecofeminism. There are other perspectives too, like environmental justice. Like it is a very crucial thing, environmental justice. Many a times we see that the more affluent people, those who are doing well in life, who are powerful, they live in areas which have a decent forest cover, tree cover, which are usually cool because they have a significant tree cover, and the water in their locality is clean. They have access to various resources. They have access to good quality farm produce. But at the same time, even in the same society, like in Indian society, we see that people who are the common folk, the common people, for us, we'll have access to muddied waters. We'll live in areas where the groundwater has gone down, where the groundwater is contaminated. There are many areas, many villages where people are bound to drink very heavily polluted water, which has a lot of metal in it. But they don't have access to proper water because they are not significant, they are not deemed significant. So even in post-colonial countries, like colonization, also if you are talking about Indian English authors, you can access something. You can also use post-colonial eco-criticism, because this is a fact that when the Britishers came, they used up a lot of our resources. They started planting monocultures so that they had access to timber for ships, for railway lines. So they started clearing our indigenous plants and trees and started planting those trees that they wanted to. So in specifically in Indian English perspective, environmental justice, post-colonial eco-criticism, amongst others are important. Otherwise, all of the various deep ecology is also important, even though it was put forward by a Norwegian critic, Arne Naess. But if you look at deep ecology, it talks about looking at nature, at ecological concerns through a spiritual perspective. So it is something that is very close to our ethos. Okay, so you could use deep ecology to study eco-critical works, to look at any work from an eco-critical perspective. So I hope you understood.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Most welcome, dear.
Saurav, I think that there is no question now. Saurav,
Yes, sir.
please take the session ahead.
Okay, sir. With that, we come to the conclusion of this wonderful session. I formally express our gratitude. I now invite Jonana Harim to deliver the vote of thanks.
Before the vote of thanks, I would like to say something.
Yes, ma'am,
That's
please.
okay. It was nice to be here. I specifically appreciate the students who came up with questions. And I would also like to thank everyone for their patience, for listening throughout the session, and for the Department of English, PG Department of English, Kareem City, for not only inviting me, but also for waiting for me at the start of the session. I'm sorry if I, made people wait. Actually, I had been trying a different link earlier, and I couldn't access initially, and there was some technical issue. So I'm very apologetic that I made people wait, but I think I had a good time speaking and answering your questions. So thank you all.
Yes, Junana, please.
Good evening to everyone present here. On behalf of the Postgraduate Department of English, Kareem City College, Jamshedpur, I, Janana Harim, take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those who made today's E-Academy session such a rich and meaningful academic experience. A sincere and profound thank you to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Priyam Francis, Assistant Professor in English at MDDM College, B.R. Ambedkar, Bihar University, for an enlightening and thought-provoking session on eco-criticism and Indian English literature. Your words have offered us valuable insights into the intersection of environment and literature and have deepened our understanding of how ecological perspective enrich literary studies. I would also like to express our sincere gratitude to our respected principal, Dr. Mohammad Riaz, for his constant support, motivation, and academic vision that continue to shape our learning environment. A special note of appreciation goes to the dedicated faculty members of the Department of English for their continued efforts in organizing such impactful sessions under the E-Academy series. And finally, a warm thank you to all our students who joined us today. Your active engagement and genuine interest truly made this session interactive and memorable. With that, we conclude today's session with immense gratitude and inspiration. Until next time, stay curious, stay reflective, and keep learning. Thank you and have a wonderful evening ahead.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. It
I'm
was
very
a great
grateful.
session. It was a great session. बहुत shukriya.
Sir, I am very grateful for the opportunity, because we are starting out in our careers, and we have not really had, the opportunity to engage with students in such sessions. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you, PG Department of English.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, dear students.
Very nice lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, shall I this
Yes, ma'am.
connect?
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Okay,
Please.
thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Sir, recording.